All right, and we are live. Welcome everybody to Hump Day Hangouts. Today is the 10th of June, 2020. Got everybody here. We're gonna say hi real quick, get the introductions out of the way, and then start answering your questions because we got a lot of questions. I don't know what the deal was this week. Everybody brought their the good stuff, so we're gonna get into it today. So Bradley, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing today?
Good, happy to be here. Been working on process development for the last 2 days straight, 2 entire days, and I feel like my eyes are crossed, but I've gotten a lot of it done. So I'm so close to having all my onboarding stuff for client, new clients and entity asset setup and all that. The process is almost 100% complete. I've put it off for years, but I've been working on it for like the last 6 or 7 weeks, and it's almost done. So super excited about that. I'll be sharing this with the mastermind members tomorrow too. So just to let you guys know that we're going to be there.
Awesome.
Otherwise, happy to be here.
Good stuff. All right, Marco, how about you, man?
I'm good, man. Still warm and sunny in Costa Rica. Nothing changes. Groundhog Day. You're seeing it everywhere. You see the exact same thing. I think might be a what do you call it? A screen, a white screen that I put behind me, right, with all that light. And this is fake. This is really a mink coat, right, with fur lining, and it's all fake. None of this is real. None of this good shit.
Just a green screen that you made white, and
there you go.
Yeah, nice and sunny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Hernan, how you doing, man? Are you nice and warm, or are you freezing?
No, actually, today was a pretty good day. The last week or so was rainy and foggy and shitty, but today is pretty good. I'm excited to be here. Also working on processes, trying to build. Getting to build another agency as well. So, working on processes, training people, and working on that. So I feel you, Bradley. But it is what it is. Like, you do it once, you put in the work, and then you get somebody repeating it over and over and over again. So that's why you put in the work, so that you can multiply that. So it's good, man. It's good. Everything's good.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, Chris, how you doing today, man?
Doing good here. And yeah, it's raining here for a change. I think it's like, I don't know. It almost feels like it's the first time since a very long time that it's actually properly raining here. But yeah, things are good here.
Nice. Well, before we get into it, wanted to let everyone know we're going to be releasing some more information about POFU Live 2020. It's still going to be the last weekend in September, and it is going to be virtual. We'll be having some updates shortly towards the end of the month, I believe, and we'll be able to answer all the questions, and you'll be able to grab your tickets to that. We're going to be reaching out. We had a few people last year who just hopped on right away. We'll be reaching out to you and getting with you about that. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, we've had a few more people joining 2X Your Agency. And for those of you who don't know about this, if you're an agency owner or a consultant, if you want to get more clients, you want to grow your revenue, you want to scale your team, if you want to do that, then 2X Your Agency is really the place for you to go. Just go over there, check it out. I'm not going to bore you to death. You're all capable of reading and watching the video on the page. But there is a ton of training. Bradley did the bulk of that training. I know Hernan did some, and I may be leaving people out, but it's just an incredible amount of content following the 3 pillars as far as what you can do to do exactly that: get more clients, grow your revenue, and scale your team. And also, version 4 of the battle plan came out not too long ago. If you somehow missed out on that, you can go grab that at battleplan.semanticmastery.com. And certainly not last is the mastermind. Bradley mentioned that real quick, that he's going to be sharing all this with the mastermind. If you want to find out more about that, just head over to mastermind.semanticmastery.com. And I am going to sneeze my brains out. Oh, man, that is the worst, trying to talk and then having to sneeze all of a sudden. All right, got that passed. So let's get into it. I wanted to tell people too real quick before we do that. Sorry. If you haven't been over to mgyb.co yet, head over there for your done for you services. I was reminded, because we were talking today about creating some more training, talking to people about worryless SEO, about not caring what the algorithm is doing. If you head over there, there's best practice webinars, which are great. I think most of them were created in the last few months. go over there if you have questions or you just want to find out more about, how does this stuff work? What should I be doing with it? Things like that. Just go over to mgyb.co. And there's a lot of great free training over there, as well as the done for you services. Cool. All right, guys. Anything else we need to cover before we dive into it?
Yes, I've got something I want to cover about syndication network applets and RSS attribution links. So if it's cool with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and grab the screen, get into that.
Go for it.
Okay, stand by. All right, so we had a, I don't know if it was a support ticket or what, but it was brought to my attention that I guess some done for you syndication network buyers didn't, if you're not using an RSS plugin that creates an attribution link whenever you syndicate content. So in other words, if you're using an RSS trigger to trigger your syndication networks, in our training, and we've always talked about how we use an RSS attribution that's coded in through a plugin. Originally, it was using the Yoast plugin, which we no longer recommend. Marco calls it the Toast plugin. So we haven't recommended that for many years because it's full of bloated code and they update it. It's just a mess. We don't ever recommend using Yoast. We developed our own, well, Chris P developed our own RSS plugin. There's a free version that goes with Syndication Academy. You guys can get it if you're part of any one of our groups. There's also a pro version that is free as long as you're in the mastermind that has a whole lot of other functionality to it besides just the attribution. But I guess some people didn't realize that if you're not using a plugin that inserts an attribution link into the feed items. So for those of you that don't know what the hell I'm even talking about, what is an attribution link? Okay, well, let me show you an example. This is a blog post on Blogger for my Alpha Land Realty project. And you can see that down here at the bottom, it says, see the We Buy Land in Bluefield, VA post originally published on the Alpha Land Realty blog. Well, this was a post that was published to this Blogger blog via an RSS feed through IFTTT, okay? So if we were to go take a look at the actual RSS feed, well, in this case, I have it hard-coded into an applet, which is what I'm going to talk about today with you guys, because I'm not using our own RSS plugin for this, and I don't use Yoast. Marco, also, you mentioned there was a plugin. What's it called?
Simple. I forgot.
Simple Attribution.
Simple Attribution. It's really good. It's really light and works fantastically well.
Right here. Okay. I haven't used this, but Marco pointed this out. So there's a couple things that I want to point out here, guys. An attribution link, what that is whenever you are republishing content, you're supposed to cite the source, give attribution to the original publisher or to the original author, right? And so that's just best practice. And so when we're syndicating content, our own content to our own branded network, one of the ways that you get a link back and also to be proper about it is to add the attribution link. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can use a plugin. Again, use our plugin, or you can use this simple attribution if you're using WordPress. If you're not using WordPress, or you don't want to use one of these plugins, you can hard code into the syndication applet inside of IFTTT an attribution link. And I'm going to share with you guys some example codes. Okay, there's two different versions of them. Well, there's multiple versions of each, but there's two basic categories of attribution links. And so what that does is every time you publish a post, it's going to automatically insert this type of attribution link down here at the bottom. Okay. And so that's giving credit to the original source. So if I click that, and this one, I don't have target equals blank in there, so it's going to open in the same window, but you can see that it's going to pull up the original post, the same post that we just saw on Blogger. It's giving link back to the original source. Okay. Now for my Alpha Land Realty project, I'm not using an RSS plugin, so it's hard coded into IFTTT. Let me give you an example. This is the RSS to Blogger applet. Okay. So if we go into settings, you're going to see right there is my feed URL. And right here is the body, or the applet body. So that's the entry content. Then I put a break tag, then published first here. And you can see it's just ahref equals entry URL, and then the anchor text in this case would be entry URL as well. That's how I have it. I've updated it since that post was published, because you can see what this looks like here. So what I wanted to share with you guys was just how to do that. And we can give you some examples real quick. Let's go back. We're going to take a look at some of the other applets. We'll take a look at RSS to WordPress. Take a look at the settings there. Same thing. We've got, these are short. I've got short attribution links here, which just link back to the original post. You can also have a combination of an attribution link that links to the original post, plus links back to either the home page or the blog page or whatever you want. Where else would this be useful? Well, think about like if you've got a Press Advantage account, or if you're buying press releases from Mgyb and you get an organization page, you get an RSS feed for your organization page or media room page, essentially. Well, you can go in and set up applets, and I encourage you to do so. Set up applets for your branded syndication networks using the Press Advantage RSS feed. And the same thing, you go into the applets and code your attribution in, and then link back to the original press release published on the Press Advantage domain. And then you can hard code in the, excuse me, let me grab this one here, and I'll blow this up so you guys can see it. You can hard code a link back into the original, to the Press Advantage organization page itself, or the media room page, okay? Or on a blog, if you're hard coding it into IFTTT to link back to your primary website, you can link either to the home page or to the blog page or whatever you want to. Okay, so let me zoom in on this just a little bit so you guys can see the code, and I'm going to share this in the chat box, and we're going to put this in a knowledge base or something as well. But this is with the link to home or blog page, or to like a Press Advantage, any source, okay, that you're going to be syndicating content from via RSS feed. You can code in this type of stuff. These are what's called ingredients in the applet. Most of you should know this. And in these with the square brackets, those are what you would replace. Those are basically tokens. You would replace that with your own website URL. And you can see that you can swap this out. This is not, you don't have to just use these. You can change wording. You can add target equals blank. You can add strategically no follow tags to, for example, linking back to the home page. Why would that be? If you're going to use one of these applets where it says with link to home page or blog page, why would you want to possibly code in a no follow link? Think about it. Okay, so here's why I would tell you to, and that was a rhetorical question, but I'm going to answer it for you. If you're syndicating content from your blog consistently to your branded network, right? Over and over and over again, you're syndicating content. Well, each time you syndicate, and let's just use the 3 blogs in a standard syndication network, the 3 Web 2.0 blog properties. Okay, so it's Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, right? If you're using one of these types of formats up here, where you're linking back to the original post, but then also linking back to the home page or to the blog roll page, the blog index page or whatever, then if you're doing, I don't know, let's just use an example, 2 posts per week, that's 8 posts per month. Well, you could see over time how having the same URL with the same anchor text, all do follow back to the home page of the blog page. That, remember, every single post you publish would include a link back to however you have it coded here, right? And that's what I'm talking about, is back to either the home page or the blog page or whatever it is. The original content, the post URL, that's only going to get 3 anchor text links back. Well, some of the other properties, but I'm just talking about the Web 2.0 blog accounts right now. You're only going to get 3 anchor text links back to that post URL for each publication, right? So each blog post that's published, it's only going to receive 3 link backs with 100% title anchor text match. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. But if you're going to continually post over and over and over again, which you likely are, and you should be, then you don't want to constantly hit the same keyword unless it's a brand or an anchor, a naked URL anchor, right? With do follow links. So that's why I'm saying, that's why the way that I have it coded here was to make it very simple for you guys. You can see that my anchor text in any one of these top 3 versions is going to be either brand or website URL, which means naked URL. So naked URL anchor text for the URL that it's linking to. Why? Because you don't want to cause a problem. And so that's why if you want to use keywords, you can, but I would recommend for the link back to the homepage or the blog page or a category page, whatever it is that you're linking back to, that you would add a no follow tag if you're going to be using keywords. It's okay to use brand. It's okay to use a naked URL. But if you're going to be using keywords, I would recommend to also include a rel equals no follow attribute into the code, the HTML code, so if that makes sense. Okay. However, if you don't want to do that, you could just use these simple ones down here, which is linked to the original post only. And like I said, you guys, you can change this around. You can see in this case, it's entry URL using the entry title as the anchor text. In this case, it's entry URL using the naked URL as the anchor text. Okay, so it just depends. You guys can move things around, swap stuff out. You can change the wording slightly, all of that. It's perfectly fine. It's just really important that you guys understand if you're not adding, if you don't have an attribution coded into your RSS feed through a plugin, okay, then this is something that you could use instead is actually code them into the applet, which is what I've actually been doing because I'm not using plugins anymore for it for most of my sites. I just have it coded in to the syndication applet. Okay. So does anybody want to comment on that? No. Okay.
No, this is just to make it clear that I mean, this is just best practices. When you get a syndication network, you should have either a plugin on the WordPress website, which creates the attribution, either the semantic mastery plugin or some other plugin, whatever the plugin of your choice would be. And in this case, we're recommending simple attribution so that you could do that. Our plugin, the semantic mastery plugin, allows spinning and a whole lot of other things that just adds. You can add relevance. You can change the way that it links back to the post or whatever it is that you're linking to. So you have a lot more leeway in what you can do with our semantic mastery plugin. Unfortunately, the one that or fortunately, which however you want to see that, the one that has the most functionality is of course only available if you're a member of the Semantic Mastery Mastermind. Otherwise, if you don't have that plugin, and if you're not creating the attribution when the RSS feed goes out, when you do your post through that plugin, what you have to do is go into IFTTT, into your applets and hard code it the way that you just showed using either brand or naked. You could also go something generic. You could go with a generic anchor, more info, more here, and things like that. That's perfectly good. If you're going to be doing keyword, like you said, it should be no follow, or you can actually go in, and this is a lot of work. You want a VA doing it. It's actually going in, and for that one post that's going to post, change it to anchor, let it go out, and then change it back, right? To a keyword anchor, whatever it is, do follow. But then you have to change everything back to make sure that you don't keep getting that keyword over and over and over again with that do follow link from all of your properties all over the place, which just doesn't make sense. So I just want people to be clear what it is that they have to do. You have to have a plugin, or you have to have this hard code in the applet. It's one or the other.
Yeah, see, that's why I recommend, like I said, guys, if you're going to use these top ones where there's every post is going to have a link back to the homepage or a blog page, then I recommend that you are using brand anchor or naked URL anchors so that you don't have to worry about going back in and editing the applets to change it up every so often. If you don't want to do that, like I said, you could just go with the original, the entry URL, right, which is the actual blog post URL or whatever syndicated content URL it is. And that you can do it that way too. So you don't have to worry about accruing too many of a particular type of anchor, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's it. I just wanted to point out, here's another example. This is one of the newer posts. And you can see this is actually going to Press Advantage. So this is one from the was a news release or a press release from Press Advantage through that Alphaland Realty account. And if you take a look at it, if I click on that, it's going to go directly to the Press Advantage press release. Okay. And then if you'll see, if I come back and click through the Alphaland Realty, I'm using brand anchor there that clicks through to the media room page. See that? So again, that's just an example of Tumblr. And then lastly, there's the example of WordPress. Here's one from last year. And you can take a look down here at the bottom. You can see it says, that's the title of the post. If I click that, it's going to take me to the original post on my Alphaland Realty blog. And if I click through, you can see in this case, I put a naked URL to the blog, which is the homepage, because the blog is on a subdomain. And so the blog is the homepage basically of alphaland.realty, if that makes sense. So you can see I just use a naked URL there, okay, with a naked URL anchor, all right? So I just wanted to kind of point that out because I guess it was brought up. Somebody realized that they were syndicating content with no attribution. And so I wanted to make sure everybody had an understanding of, you know, where you can add attribution if you don't already have that inserted into your RSS feeds via a plugin. Okay. And like I said, you should be, you know, if you were syndicating content without attribution, if you've been following best practices with publishing content that's always includes an internal link to one of your pages on your site, whatever it is you're trying to promote, you're still getting the SEO benefit. But you know, we always recommend having an attribution link because it, you know, especially because I like having the title of the post as the anchor text linking back to the post URL itself. It just adds a bunch of diversity of different types of anchors that are coming, that are accruing or building up over time for your site in general, right? Does that make sense? Because the title of the blog post becomes, at least the way that I have my applets coded, the title of the blog post becomes the anchor text. And so that adds a lot of diversity over time, if that makes sense. Okay. So anyways, I just wanted to cover that. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me reset all this stuff and then we'll get to questions. Okay. So we're going to start with Benjamin. He says, hey guys, I'm building a content site currently in a competitive niche, primary keyword, 75,000 a month for Google to monetize with affiliate sales. There is new curated content going on to the site each day. My plan was to get a tier 1 network set up around the money site, then have an RYS stack above that pointing to the properties in the tier 1, then throw the kitchen sink at the RYS stack via the Nitro link building package. Would you say this is the optimum configuration for these 3 elements, or am I overthinking it, Ben? No, Ben, that's right. Get the syndication network. In fact, the best thing to do is just order the SEO Power Shield, because you're going to have, it's pretty much everything combined. And so you get the syndication network first, and then they build the syndication network properties into the drive stack. Then you get the drive stack and ID page, all of that, the Gsite. And then you can, once you have all of that delivered, in fact, you don't even have to wait. If you wanted to, you could start building links to the syndication network as soon as you have that delivered, which that gets delivered first. Or you could wait until everything is delivered and build links to all of it. So all of the URLs from the syndication network, the drive stack files and folders, the Gsite, that kind of stuff. Or you could, like I said, do 2 different link building gigs, 1 link building gig for the syndication network, because you're going to get that first anyways. Wow. And then, you know, it takes another 2 weeks or whatever for the drive stack and Gsite to be completed. And then you could order another link building gig for that. So it really just depends how you want to, you know, kind of sequence the things. But if you buy an SEO Power Shield, it's going to be the bundle. It just saves you, it kind of puts everything together, and it helps our team because our team knows the process and which sequence to deliver them. That's what I would recommend. Any comments?
SEO Power Shield with link building included, but that's SOP, right?
Yep.
He's in a difficult niche. You got to hit it once it's delivered to see what happens, to see how much more you're going to need. I was looking at the second part of this question, and I'm seeing like there's no way to answer if that's going to be enough. Nobody can tell you what's going to be enough in your niche. It's just you get the SEO Power Shield back, you hit it with the link building, you hit it with the embeds, do some press releases, of course, and link building and embeds, and then see what happens. Once that's done, once the dust clears, right? 21 days, wait it out, and you need data. You need to see what damage all of that did, how it is that you're managing to come up in that niche. Once you have that information, that you know whether you need to extend your drive stack, which you probably will in something that's very competitive. I'm gonna say maybe. I'm not gonna say probably. You might need it. If you do, we have that available. Then it's the same procedure, the same process, right? You have the drive stack, you extend it, you do the money site inner page, link building, embeds, maybe a press release, and see how that does to push up the top market level category, and so on and so on and so on until you get the desired results. I mean, there's no one cure-all for everything. If we could do that, then I wouldn't be here today, probably. Yeah.
You know, for a long time, we had, especially when Syndication Academy was new, we would have members, you know, people come on the Hump Day Hangouts, and almost every week we'd get this question: how many networks will it take to rank, or how many posts will it take to rank for whatever keyword? And people would, you know, and we would always say it depends, right? We can't answer that. It always depends. It takes as many as it takes. That was our answer: as many as it takes. How many networks will it take to rank, or how many posts will it take to rank? We would always say as many as it takes. because there's no way that we can answer that. Again, you know, I always try to do the least amount of work to get results. So I don't usually come out of, it depends. Again, it depends on the project and what the budget is and all that other kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll come out of the gate with, you know, a Nitro, you know, Nitro kit link building package. But for a lot of the local projects that I work on, you know, that's unnecessary. It's overkill, especially if I'm going to be staging, you know, cycling through link building and embed gigs over the course of a few months. Then there's really no need to come out right up front, you know, all guns blazing, because I'm going to make up for it in, you know, by doing multiple gigs over time. And so I like doing it that way, because that way I'm not, you know, blowing my load, so to speak, you know, like spending a whole bunch of money up front where it might have not needed that, if that makes sense. I like to kind of keep things in reserve for when needed, and kind of watch and monitor how much the needle moves with things that I do. And then I can start to determine, okay, this is more competitive than I thought it was, so maybe I have to go a little bit more aggressive on link building or whatever. Again, that's just the way that I do it. I know a lot of people like to come out like, you know, all guns blazing, like throw everything they have at something right up front. But what I don't like about that is, you know, if you don't need as much, then you're kind of wasting time or money, for that matter, that could be reserved, or money that you could keep as profit instead, you know. So, but it's really up to you how you want to approach that. All right, Ed's up. He says, I got my first SEO Shield order back. I understand the syndication network and posting and press releases. I understand the drive stacking. I'm still lost on the ID page though. What do I do with it? Do I submit it to Google Search Console? Yes, I recommend doing that. So if you uploaded it, you know, if you have the the ID page in an Amazon S3 bucket, the way that you can add that to your Search Console is you can upload you can go to add it. You have to add it as a URL. You can't do like a domain prefix in Search Console with it, because you don't own the Amazon domain, but you can add it as a URL. Right, so you go to add the URL in Search Console, and it'll tell you that it needs verification. And if you're just submitting the Amazon S3 URL, then you can download the HTML file and upload it to the same bucket, right? The same Amazon bucket that you have the HTML page hosted in or saved in. Okay, and then you go back and click verify, and it'll verify it just like that. And so I always recommend, you know, whatever account the Gsite and Drive Stack were built under is typically where I end up submitting the ID page into the Search Console there. It doesn't matter if you have a branded asset, you know, like a G Suite account or something like that, you can always add it there too. It doesn't matter to the same Search Console account that's attached to your G Suite account. I'm just saying, for my processes, we typically just add it to the Search Console account of the Gsite and Drive Stack owner, so to speak. But yes, you can do that. Do I never touch it? There's things you can do to add additional stuff on there. I don't know how much I can share here specifically, because some of that stuff is reserved for Mastermind and or RYS only, or perhaps Heavy Hitter Club now. But you can add additional things into it. You know, just think about other assets that would make sense to embed. It makes sense to embed in there. You know what I mean? So, for example, you could possibly take your blog roll page and embed that into it, so that if you're blogging consistently on your money site, now you've got dynamic content updating your ID page, because you've embedded your blog index page into the ID page. Does that make sense? So that way it is being updated every time you publish a post. It's going to automatically update the ID page through the embed, right? So there will be like new content on the page. So that's just one example of some of the things that you can do. You can add additional assets in there that are branded. You can update the JSON-LD structured data code to add more same as attributes. You know, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to it beyond that. You can leave it alone. That's perfectly fine, but you can always squeeze more power out of it. You just got to think about what type of assets would make sense to embed in there, or things that you could do to dynamically update it. Like I just mentioned, RSS feeds, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to an ID page. Okay. But you can leave it just the way that it is and get results from that too, but you can always squeeze more power out of them, is what I'm saying.
Each property that gets iframed into that ad ID page is a perfect place for link building and for embed runs and link building. So you also can consider that as an asset. All of those URLs are assets for you to hammer with link build. Well, not hammer in garbage spam, which will work anyway. But if you keep your link profile clean, if you use better links, Web 2.0 is the way that we do it in Web 2.0 contextuals, you'll get better results, and it just looks better.
Yeah, and so remember also, if you don't already have structured data on your primary web asset, then add it and make sure that you're pointing the ID page, designating the ID page to the URL of your ID page. Does that make sense? So, for example, if you already had structured data on your primary website, but you didn't have an ID page field, or if, like most people do, they just duplicated the URL of the home, the home page of the primary domain as the ID page. Now you should now that you have a published ID page, an actual ID page, go back through and edit your structured data code to include that URL as the ID page, as opposed to just the homepage of your website. So that there's a few things that you can do with it. That might be something actually that we could, I know we talked about last week about doing a Mgyb update webinar. That might be something we could include in that, is just a little bit more on how to squeeze more out of an ID page. Maybe we can add that to the notes. All right, moving on. Next is there's several questions here. I don't know that we're going to get through all these. We'll try. Just for everybody's etiquette for others is try not to post 18 questions in one question, guys. It's not fair to everybody else because it takes up too much time. Post a question or two is okay, and then wait till some other people post, and then you can post more questions. That way we're giving other people a chance. There's a lot of questions squeezed into this. All right. So we'll get through a couple of them, and and we're going to move on. We'll come back if we have time. First one is, if I have a global affiliate site that targets all English speaking people around the world, as the offers could be delivered globally with the primary focus on the US and the UK, is it possible that if I create a US GMB, that would limit my traffic to the US and even to the US area of the GMB in a similar way that geotargeting and Search Console does? The GMB would only, again, I'm not sure I understand the question, in that if you have a GMB, you're limited for the GMB and to where it will rank in maps. Does that make sense? But having a GMB tied to a global domain isn't going to affect, at least as far as I know. I've never tested it, but as far as I know, it doesn't seem to me like it doesn't seem logical that it would limit the website's exposure by having it tied to a GMB in the US. The maps ranking itself for the GMB would be limited to its immediate area, which is normal for all GMBs now. But I can't imagine it causing any issues. Marco, have you tested any of that or have any experience with that?
Well, the Land Solutions Network has a corporate entity, right, in Pennsylvania. That's the way we decided to set that up, just to give it a corporate presence, get a GMB, to kind of show, that it's a local company, but it's spread out. And but then that's also geo-targeting the US. So it's a service-based business targeting the US. It has a service area. As long as you don't, I don't know how you would do that if you have a global entity, and why you would pigeonhole it into a GMB, where you're required to either show your address or to set a service area, and you can't set the globe as a service area unless you deliver goods and services to the person, right, at their location. That's the idea behind a service-based business, right? And so you'd have to look at that. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Why don't you just, because you're not, here's the thing where people get confused. If you're doing local, it's natural and it looks really good, and you have to have a GMB, or else you're not going to rank in the 3-pack. And that's where the most action takes place in most niches locally. People go into their cell phones and they look up whatever service it is that they're looking for, and they get a map pack, or they get ads and a map pack, or something along those lines. If you don't want that to happen, and if your niche doesn't trigger a map pack, then why would you want to be involved in that in the first place? There's other ways to verify and validate that entity that doesn't involve a GMB. We just did it with LAN Solutions Network because I knew we'd be targeting the US, and I knew how we would be targeting the other states and cities in the US, right? So I knew what was going to happen already and how that was going to happen. But if I were going globally, I wouldn't have done that. I would have never set my geolocation to the US. I probably wouldn't have gotten a GMB. I would have looked for another way, running ads in Google and YouTube, getting that credit card on file, going into Gsite, right? As the company LAN Solutions Network, doing all of the things that a company does when they want to work within Google, when they want to run ads, which would be worldwide, not just to one particular geolocation. Just makes no sense.
Yeah, so I agree that, you know, there's, if you don't force a GMB just because you think you need it, you know, if there's a specific reason that you want to have a GMB or that you need to have a GMB in the US, then so be it. But as Marcus said, there's other ways to solidify or validate the entity more in Google's eyes. Like he mentioned, running Google ads, right? Having credit card on file, running some ads. You can run YouTube ads or display ads very inexpensively with even $1 a day budget, right? So even less. But it's just that Google can recognize you're a real person. It's not a spam account. You're paying money. Same thing with G Suite. G Suite's a great way to validate an entity, which at the basic level, it's $6 a month per user for the G Suite account. And then also you could upgrade like Google Drive for that account and do pay. So you get additional storage, right? That's another way to get it on file. So there's a number of different ways to validate it besides having the GMB. Unless, of course, you need it, which brings me to question number 2 of this. If I am physically located in Europe, but I need a US GMB in the health niche, is it possible that this could happen if the description is more generic and not so much health related, and if the name is more generic? Well, again, I'm not 100% sure. Why do you need, if you're located in Europe, excuse me, I'm not sure why you need a GMB in the US. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm not sure what the point of that would be. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Number 3, does ID page loop make sense if you don't have a GMB? Yes, it does, because although the ID page stuff that we started with, you know, I guess it was in 2018, February 2018, I think. It was originally tied to just local business structure data, but it's beyond that now. Marco, you can talk a little bit more. I only do local, but you can talk a little bit about that more. An ID page is just a reference area for an entity. It's telling the Google bot to go that all of the entity information that will help to validate that entity is in this location. And that's what we use the ID page for. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything on the web has a node. Okay, everything connected to the web. So even if you have a smart refrigerator, a smart range, a smartphone, a smart TV, whatever smart device you have, that's going to have a node. And the question now is, how do we identify that node for the bot to understand what this connection is to whatever it is that we're doing? And what's happening, how that's being done now is at local, is how it started. But now you have organization. Mm-hmm. So you can have an ad ID for your organization, and what that does is it identifies the organization node where all of your organizational information resides. And so that's how we do it. That's how we target it. But you can have multiple ad IDs. Like you can have a web page ad ID. You have a product ad ID. You're just naming the node for the product, the website, the web page, just whatever. You're identifying it for the bot. These are identifiers. And how 2 nodes get connected, well, that's the URL, right? It's a hyperlink. They're connected through a way for each one to talk to one another. Well, that's HTTP, HTTPS, and the way that the World Wide Web is intermeshed, right? Interlinked, so that everything is identified and connected through an IP, or however it is that connection is made. Now, as far as the question is concerned, does an ad ID page loop make sense? It makes sense because it's an entity loop. We named it and the ad ID loop originally, but what we were doing is we were creating an entity loop, and we were sending Google hopping from one place to another that contained nothing but our entity's information and everything related to our entity, and we were just echoing it over and over and over and over again. We were able to trap the bot in that echo, it's like an echo chamber, right? Or that
Yeah.
endless mirror where it just bounces back and forth, and we've seen it. We've seen it happen. We can see it. We can see the bot in there going back and forth through the iframes. We can see it reading the information in the iframes. These are the things that we've proven. So is it? Yes, of course it makes sense. It makes total sense, because if not, you're not identifying your entity properly for the bot.
Thank you. It was a thorough answer. So DCSEO's up. What's up, man? He says, on the Gsite of the Shield, there are a number of short links that have Mgyb in them. How important are they? Because I want to sell my clients the Shield without them actually being able to figure it out, where and who it was created by and how much it costs, because I will be adding my own margin onto it. I've considered not telling them that they'll end up with the Gsite, but almost everyone I deal with here in the UK has been burnt by another SEO company, which is true everywhere, not just in the UK. So I want to be as transparent as possible. On a slightly different note, if a client doesn't want to publish their GMB site, okay, well, let me answer the first question and we'll come back to that second part. We run all the URLs through the Mgyb shortener because it gives you another target URL for link building purposes. And because of all the link building that's been done to the drive stacks and Gsite that we've built over the years now, the mgyb.co shortener is incredibly powerful. So you actually siphon power from that into your stack by having those shortened links there. That said, there's a couple things. I don't know that you could, I don't manage the Mgyb build team at all. That Marco and Rob do that really. So I don't know if you could request to have one built without the shortened links. I guess it's possible. Maybe Marco could answer that, or Rob. I know he's usually lurking, listening to us, and he comments in Slack. But something else you could do is when it's delivered, if you wanted to hide that from, or not reveal the mgyb.co shortened links to the client, is you could just go into the drive stack and delete those from the the sheets and things like that if you wanted. Obviously, it would be more time more efficient if you just ordered the stack and requested to not have those included. Is that something that could be done, Marco?
No. And I'll tell you why. The Mgyb shortener adds so much power to everything that they even rank, and they'll index. So on my map, that's really hard to index right now, will index through the Mgyb shortener. So why would we want to interfere with all of the power? And if I were to tell my guys to do that, then you would have to, we would have to give it to you with the warning. We can't be sure how this is going to work. Yeah. Because we don't do them that way. Now, if you just share your screen for a second and just go to https mgyb.co to the shortener.
It's shortener, right? Or
yes, S.
Oops, I got the wrong. If I could type, maybe I could get it. Mgyb. Right there.
That's all the person is going to see. Just another shortener. Just another URL shortener. They don't have to figure anything out. Yeah. I mean, if they want to look at it's a service that actually you can say you're paying for. The pricing is right there, and you're using it just to provide short links and to be able to customize. You can actually go and pay for it, get into the service so that you can customize the links for the client. Well, this is the way I'm customizing your links so that they look better, so that they look nicer, so that they're more attractive for the person to click on. They don't have to figure out everything that you're doing. They can't just from going to here. This is just our shortener. It's no different than Bitly or any other shortener out there.
And I'd like to comment and say what Marco said is true. I agree that also delivering a drive stack without those URLs would be like going into a fight with one arm tied behind your back, right? Because you're losing the benefit that you gain from having the mgyb.co links because of the power that's been accrued to it over time. So that's number one. Number two, again, if my rebuttal to saying that you're worried about the client seeing, going to mgyb.co and looking at the store and seeing what drive stacks cost and everything else. Would your client have any idea what the hell to do, how to order, what to do with them, or anything else without you? No. I mean, it's like 99% chance that they wouldn't have a damn clue as to what to do, even if they did find the Mgyb store. They wouldn't have any idea how any of those things would benefit them, because as it stands right now, it's still basically a store that is for SEO professionals and marketing professionals, not for the layman, right? The average business person or business owner. So you're getting paid for understanding how to put all of these things together and make it work and produce results, right? That's your expertise. It's like I remember reading somewhere, somebody saying, you know, when you hire a plumber that's got 10 years of experience to come out and fix a leaking pipe, right? And he comes out and fixes it in 30 minutes and charges you $150 or $200, you know, the service call plus whatever, $200. Are you paying for $200? You know, like it takes 30 minutes. So what would that be? $400 an hour effectively? Or so are you only paying for that 30 minutes? No, you're paying for 10 years of experience that plumber has accrued. And that's why they're able to fix it so efficiently. I don't know if that's an analogy that makes sense to you. It does to me. But, you know, they're paying a markup because you're the one that's putting it together and making sure that they're going to get results from it. Whereas even if they went and found our store, it's likely they would have no idea what the hell they were looking at or what the hell to do with it, even if they did purchase it. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't, and trust me, if they ordered it and then got into the order where they had to submit the order details, they'd be lost probably because they don't understand half the terminology that, you know, we request in the order. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. You should always, Muhammad, I think he's got a question in here. He's been following us for a long time, and he, you know, and Muhammad, I'm not picking on you, but he's gotten into a lot of situations with clients about that kind of stuff, you know, where too much has been revealed or they ask too many questions and blah, blah, blah. And remember, you're getting paid for your expertise, for knowledge that you've accrued through time and effort. And so you deserve to be paid for that and manage the build, manage, you know, the what's done with it afterwards and everything else. So any comments on that?
Yeah, this is where I'd like to add that if he's taken the person through the conversation in the right way, what he's done is he's told this person, I'm going to get you results. How I get results is my business. Like I don't, you're not going to tell this business owner how to run their business because you probably don't know how and you don't care to know how. All you need to know is, as Jordan Fowler, one of our mastermind members says, all you have to know is Google. And all you have to tell that client is, look, you know your business, I know Google, and I'm going to get you results. And you're going to pay me for results. You're not paying me for the how or the why. Now, if you want to pay me for the how or the why, that's consultation. And that's $1,500 an hour. I'd be happy to take you into instructional mode, minimum 5 hours a month. And during the course of 12 to 18 months, I can take you through everything so that you can go and get results. Or rather than do that, why don't you just pay me my monthly and let me get you results so that you don't have to go through those 18 through that crash course of 18 months of learning so that you can start the process of doing what it is that I already do and that I have 17 years of experience doing. So guys, it's that conversation. You got to have that conversation with the client, and you have to school the client in the right mode. Yes, they've been burned. They've been burned because they're forced to sign contracts and they're promised the moon, and that the moon is made of cheese and all this shit, where all you have to do is tell them, hey, look, man, I'm going to get you results. I'm going to need 90 days. I can probably get your results sooner, but I don't want to make any promises because I don't control Google. But what I do know is that within 90 days, we're going to start to see results. At the end of those 90 days, we'll sit down and revisit the fee. So that even gives you an opportunity to increase your fee, because you're going to rock this guy's world. If you do the things that we do in the way that we do them, the guy is going to be blown out of his mind. I mean, his head is going to explode from the results you're going to get. But the conversation has to be there. If he's focusing on how you're getting results and why are you doing this and how are you doing it, dude, you got to pay me for my knowledge. I'm not going to give you my knowledge for $2,500 a month. There's just no way.
Yeah. So he says, on a slightly different note, if a client doesn't want to publish their GMB site, can I use the primary URL from the money site as the rel equals canonical? Yeah, I mean, if that's fine. The only reason why we had set it up originally to point to the GMB website if it's for a local project is because some of our customers at Mgyb or our members in the mastermind or whatever, if you have the rel equals canonical pointing to the money site, if you're doing a backlink analysis through like Majestic or Ahrefs or something like that, you can often see some of the links that are being built to the Gsite through the rel equals canonical. Like, in other words, so you can see some of the link building that's being done by, you know, if you're using link building analysis tools or link analysis tools. I don't care. I honestly don't care, because as long as I'm getting results, it really shouldn't matter. Some of our customers or members didn't want that. So that's why we defaulted it to point the rel equals canonical to the GMB website. If you have a GMB site, you know, a GMB location associated with the Drive Stack build, but it's not necessary. Like, you can link, it just depends. If you're worried about clients looking at link building analysis, you know, link analysis reports and such like that, and you don't want them to see the types of links that are being built, then yeah, I would point it to something else. It could be the, you know, not the primary website, but you could even point it to like the GMB map instead of the GMB website, for example. But again, I don't care. For personally, I just order them through the Mgyb now, just like you guys do. I swear, I ordered my drive stacks just like you guys do. And then when I get them back, I typically, when I'm uploading my ID page because I upload it to my own Amazon site or whatever, then I usually do the rel equals canonical back to the money site. So it's just an edit that I make before I upload it. It's entirely up to you. Is there any other comments you want to make on that, Adam or Marco, before I move on?
I don't see why they wouldn't want their GMB published.
Me neither.
Like, their business, like, I don't see why that's a showcase. It's a showcase for your post. It's more URLs to spam, to link build to, for iframes. There's just so much that you can get from that. And then not only that, when they see just how many visits come through and how much action comes through the post and the GMB, like that whole ecosystem. I was just looking at one, and today's what, Wednesday? And I've already had 838 post views for the week, and it's only Wednesday. Right? Like I'm about to post that as an update in the heavy hitter club, but it's ridiculous for you for the client to even consider not publishing the money site, especially since it's done by Google on auto, and they interlink everything, and they give you all the love that's necessary for you to just hammer. I don't get it.
It's another branded asset too. I totally agree. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to. I mean, you guys, you understand you can't control clients. Sometimes clients demand things that just make no sense. They defy logic. And that's fine. You have to work within those parameters at times, or fire them as a client. But I agree 100% with Marco. There's no reason why, and we've had that question come up in Hump Day Hangouts. We're like, my client doesn't want the Gsite ranking. Why not? Why the hell wouldn't you want a Gsite ranking, right? Like, it pushes a competitor off the page. And if you iframe your money site page into the top of the Gsite, then they're going to see the original page. I mean, the money site anyways. What difference does it make? But some people they're just finicky like that. But I totally agree. It's another asset. It takes up more real estate. You can do a lot with it. So it seems silly not to, in my opinion. But the short answer is yes, you can canonicalize the ID page to another tier 1 asset. I would recommend it being a Google asset like the GMB map URL, for example, or something like that. Okay. Gsite, whatever. Fitz is up. What's up, Fitz? He's here almost every week. Good day, gents. Thanks for the forum to ask questions and get real world actionable answers. Marco, thank you for the charity work you do for these kids. I love how Fitz promotes your charity for you, man. That's awesome. He's a good man for that. He says, please post the charity.
Thanks, Fitz.
Yeah. Please post the charity link again so others can help with a quick $10, $20, or $100 to help these kids out. Our world needs good people to help, even if it is with only a few dollars. Today, my question is, on Hump Day, we hear about limiting the links to only one link so that we can concentrate the power. Is that for press releases or when requesting link building? Oh, that's a great question, Fitz. So if that wasn't clear before, that was within press releases. Now, Marco might have slightly different methodology than I do. For press releases, I typically use most press releases. If they're kind of one-off press releases, I usually link with 2 links. And again, if you go look, I'm talking, when I've talked about it, it's mainly for press releases. Because for example, you can add 3 links into a press release, but you're splitting the power of the link equity coming from that press release every time you add an additional URL, like another outbound link, right? So you can concentrate the power into one specific URL if you need to. However, if you go to the mgyb.co store or domain and you look at the or you can go to our YouTube channel, or you go to Google and search for press release silos or PR silo stacking or whatever. You'll see the webinar that we did where the way that I do it, as I'm usually linking with 3 links per press release now. And it's because the way for local projects that I do it, or that my team does it, is we publish a blog post and we publish a corresponding GMB post that links to the blog post. Okay. And then we publish a press release. And so the press release will link to either the blog post URL directly or to the GMB post URL. Does that make sense? That's promoting that's linked to the blog post URL. And then we link back to the tier 1, a tier 1 entity asset. Could be the homepage, it could be a category page, or top level silo page. It could be Facebook page, LinkedIn company page, the Drive Stack primary folder, the Gsite, whatever, any one of the primary tier 1 entity assets. So that's link number 2, right? First link's going to link to the blog post that the press release is promoting, right? Because I publish all, not for, like, if I'm doing 3 blog posts per week, then if the client's only paying for 1 blog post, or excuse me, 1 press release per week, then one of those blog posts is going to get a press release that is promoting the blog post. And the blog post, the press release is either going to link directly to the blog post URL or to the GMB post URL that is linking directly to the blog post URL. Then we link to another tier 1 entity asset, any one of them. I've talked about this before, but my bloggers have a client workbook, which is a Google Sheet for every client. And there's a target URLs column that has all of the primary tier 1 entity assets that we want to power up. And they just go down, and each time they publish another press release, blog post, whatever, they select another target URL and they link to that. So that would be link number 2. And then the third link is a link back to a previous press release in the same silo, right? Because we do press release silo. We theme mirror everything, right? We theme mirror the blog post silo structure into the GMB, or excuse me, the Google site, into the GMB posts, and now even in the press releases. So everything is theme mirrored. That's why it's called mirroring, right? And again, that was originally coined by Network Empire. So I usually, if it's a one-off press release, I'm usually linking to two outbound URLs. If it is within a silo, which most content is now, then it's going to link to, like I said, the original post URL or the GMB, the corresponding GMB post URL, another tier 1 entity asset, just cycle through target URL list. And then the third is going to be linking to the previous press release in that same silo. That's just the way that I do it. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I wasn't referring to either one of those scenarios when I talked about the one link method, which was strictly for the Drive Stack extension and the Gsite inner page extension targeting a money site inner page. That's when we use that one link method to concentrate the power as close to 1-to-1 as possible, instead of dividing it like you just mentioned in a press release. The way that you'd be dividing it is either 2 by 2 or by 3.
Right.
We want a 1-to-1 transfer from the Gsite over to the money site inner page, from the extension to the inner page. So I'd go back and watch those webinars, Fitz. I know that you have access to those, and that's what we were mainly talking about. And although you can do that one link method however way you want to do it, because what you have to understand is how you're transferring PageRank, ranking score, and power.
All right, so we're almost out of time. I'd like to get through these next 2 if we can. So let's get to them. Jigglypuff says, "Hey guys, I just got the battle plan and really enjoying the content you guys share. Well, thank you. Can the link building by Dedhia offered through Mgyb be used on a money site? No. We don't recommend that. That we always recommend using the tier 1 entity assets as the link building targets. That's what our link building services were developed for, specifically to power up the tier 1 entity assets, not the money site. That's why we call it an SEO Shield, because it acts as an SEO firewall that protects the money site, right? You're basically building a cocoon, a shield around your money site using high authority entity assets that you can now power those up. And ultimately, the link equity flows through to the money site, but it gets cleaned or laundered through those entity assets. So we do not recommend that. Now, if you want link diversity to your money site, press releases. That's a fantastic way. Like that, press releases are an awesome way to add link diversity to your money site, because you can link directly to your money site. And I would recommend that I primarily use naked URLs when linking to the money site, but you can do some generic stuff or some brand anchors and things like that so that you get link diversity as well as anchor diversity back to your money site. But I would use press releases for that. Any comments on that?
No, never to the money site. We don't recommend that. That's why we have the SEO Power Shield, as you said. It provides a shield and it amplifies the power. So why would you do anything except go through the SEO Power Shield?
That's right. So that's why it's important to build those assets first, and then you can hammer the shit out of those assets with the link building and embed gigs or embed plus link building gigs, so that link building is getting done to the embed pages, right? So there's a number of things you can do to power those assets up without them directly linking directly to your money site through those through Dedhia's link building service, if that makes sense. So there you go. Next question, and we're going to wrap it up, guys, because we're at the 5 o'clock mark. And unfortunately, damn it. Oh, Mohammed, I answered your question. I commented below. Cult of Copy. It's a great resource for copywriting in Facebook. They've also got a marketplace where you can hire copywriters and all kinds of stuff. So go look at Cult of Copy. Anyways, this last question. Can you order more than one ID page done for you service to the same domain, but pointing to different money site URL? Or should you only have one ID page for each money site? Well, if you understand, that's what we were talking about earlier. An ID page is supposed to be basically a resource to say this is where it helps to validate an entity, right? So a money site, right, should really only have one ID page. The way that I do it for local, okay, because remember, everything I do is in local, but you can have multiple ID pages for a brand if there's, in my case for local, if there's multiple locations, right? So there can be, like, for example, I'm working on a tree service project now. I'm sharing that in the mastermind. That is got multiple locations. And so the homepage of the website, the primary domain, the root domain, is essentially got corporation, organization, corporation structured data, right? So markup that has an ID page. That ID page is just brand and keywords. So there's not any location optimization for the ID page, right? Because it's an ID page for the overall entity, the brand itself, right? And I'm using corporation markup, which is a subset of organization markup, okay? So I've got an ID page that links to that the money site links to or references the ID page for the brand plus keyword association, but no location optimization. But then I've got multiple locations that is brand plus location name appended to it. And each one of those locations has its own ID page that's optimized for that specific location. Does that make sense? So you can have multiple ID pages if you're having, again, depending on what it is you're trying to validate. That just, if you understand what we're talking about with what an entity is, then it'll click. You'll understand what the ID page is for. It's a resource that you're telling Google through the structured data code, hey, all of the entity information can be validated here. And so on that page is where you have all the iframes, structured data, tier 1 entity assets, all of that stuff is listed or housed within that ID page because you're telling Google, reference this page to validate this entity and all the data within. Does that make sense? So if you understand that, then there are times where you can have multiple ID pages. And Marco, you might be able to explain that a little bit more clearly than me. I don't know if that was clear or not.
Yeah, you can have multiple ad IDs. All right. So you got a parent, and this parent has 4 children. It doesn't matter where those children are. So now you have the organization, corporation, as you said, and you're going to have inner locations. Now, as the parent, you can talk about your children because they're your children. And you can do this in the schema, in the JSON plus LD. Rob showed this in the Heavy Hitter Club in our, let me see, a week ago Wednesday, in our mastermind, right? In the webinar that we had. He showed this. He showed how you can reference the children and how the children can each reference the parent. And what you have to be careful is that you make sure these children don't become orphaned where you confuse the bot. And you have to make sure that this parent is claiming the right children, because if it starts claiming other children, then you're gonna have to pay child support. And everybody's gonna get confused. They don't know who's daddy, who's mommy. You have to make this clear to the bot. If you confuse the bot, you're fucked. Excuse the language. I know this is supposed to be PG. I don't give a shit. You are screwed if you don't reference everything correctly. Rather than doing all of that, why don't you just concentrate on your entity, which is what it should be. It's an entity loop. Your ID is an entity loop. It's everything about your company, about your business.
There you go. Okay, we got to wrap it up, guys. Sorry.
I was going to say, or come to the Heavy Hitter Club and learn how to do it.
There you go. So thanks everybody for being here.
Awesome.
See you guys next week.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.